The Shadow Follower. From the moment I downloaded Randonautica, I had no idea that one tap of a button could change my life forever. They say the app opens doors to unknown possibilities, sending you to random locations based on your intent. All I wanted was a thrill, a quick rush of adrenaline, a bit of urban exploring on a quiet Sunday. I never expected that something would latch onto me, something that would shadow me wherever I went, gnawing at my sanity and dismantling my reality. My name is Jess, and if you're reading this, there's one thing you need to understand. Randonautica is not just an app. Sometimes it takes you to places you're not meant to go. The beginning of the end, it started as a casual adventure. My friends were all busy that weekend, so I decided to do a little solo exploring. I opened the app and set my intent, mystery. That seemed fitting enough. Within moments, the app generated a location, a pin dropped deep within the woods on the outskirts of town, far from any trails or known paths. Curious and excited, I grabbed my backpack, hopped in the car, and set off. As I approached the location, the roads narrowed and the trees thickened, creating a dense canopy overhead. The light seemed to drain from the world, and the air grew colder. Eventually, the road became too overgrown to continue by car, so I parked and walked the rest of the way. The silence was oppressive. No wind, no birds, just my own footsteps crunching over leaves and twigs. After about 20 minutes, I reached a small clearing. There was nothing there. No ruins, no hidden gems. Just an empty patch of earth surrounded by towering pines. I should have felt disappointed, but instead I felt uneasy. It was subtle at first, the sensation of being watched. You know the feeling when the hairs on the back of your neck rise. That's exactly what happened. I glanced around, but the woods were still. I laughed it off, told myself I was being ridiculous, and headed back to my car. That's when I saw it. Out of the corner of my eye, in the shadows of the trees, something shifted. A tall, dark figure standing just at the edge of my vision. My heart pounded. But when I turned to look directly, it was gone. I brushed it off as a trick of the light, maybe fatigue, and quickened my pace. But as I neared my car, I saw it again, closer this time, darting between the trees. Again, when I looked, it vanished. A shiver ran down my spine, but I forced myself to keep walking, eager to leave the woods behind. I should have run. The unrelenting presence, the unease, followed me home. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. Every creak of the house made my skin crawl. Every shadow seemed to stretch a little too long, linger a little too darkly. I kept glancing at the mirrors in my apartment, half expecting to see something lurking behind me. The next day, things got worse. At work, I sat in my office, typing away on my computer, when I noticed it. A flicker of movement reflected in my monitor, something dark and indistinct standing behind me. I spun around, heart hammering, but my office was empty. I thought I was losing it. My rational brain told me it was stress, maybe a lack of sleep. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. That night, the dreams began. In everyone. I was in those woods again, standing in the clearing, feeling that familiar sensation of being watched. But this time, the shadow wasn't distant. It stood right in front of me, towering, featureless, and menacing. When I woke, I was drenched in sweat, my heart racing. But the worst part, I could swear I felt the shadow standing at the foot of my bed, watching. The shadow revealed over the next few days. The shadow became bolder, no longer confined to the edges of my vision. It appeared in mirrors, its shape reflected in glass surfaces, watching me from behind. No matter where I went home, work, the grocery store, it was there. Every time I looked, it disappeared, but its presence lingered like an unshakable weight pressing down on me. I became paranoid, jumping at every sound, every shadow that moved across my walls. My friends noticed too. "You look exhausted, Jess," they'd say. "Are you okay?" But how could I explain it? How could I tell them that something was following me, haunting me, and that I couldn't escape? Desperate for answers, I returned to the spot where it all started, the clearing in the woods. I thought maybe I could face whatever it was, confront it, and end this nightmare. But when I arrived, the air felt heavier, thicker. I stood in the center of the clearing, calling out into the trees, but all I got in response was silence. Then the shadows began to move. They slithered along the forest floor like tendrils, crawling up the trees, pulling the light from the sky. The figure materialized again, standing just at the edge of the clearing, its presence overwhelming. This time, it didn't vanish when I looked at it. Instead, it stepped forward. I ran. I didn't look back, not until I was safely in my car, peeling out of that cursed place. But as I sped down the road, I realized something chilling. The shadow wasn't bound to the clearing. It had followed me. The final days, the shadow was no longer content with lurking. It began to invade my personal space, creeping closer and closer. I'd see it standing at the foot of my bed at night, its form barely visible in the darkness. In the bathroom, it appeared in the fogged-up mirror as I showered, its outline growing sharper each day. At work, I'd feel a cold breath on my neck, but no one was ever there. One night I awoke to find it standing inches from me. Its blackness so profound it seemed to swallow the room. I couldn't scream. All I could do was lie there, paralyzed. As the shadow leaned closer, its presence suffocating, I was losing my grip on reality. I started staying awake for days at a time, hoping that if I didn't sleep, it couldn't come for me. But it didn't matter. The shadow had become a part of my life, an ever-present entity that thrived on my fear, feeding off my paranoia. One evening, I found an old journal buried deep in my closet, something I hadn't touched in years. Flipping through it, I saw pages filled with drawings of a shadowy figure. I didn't remember sketching them, but they were there, detailed and terrifying. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This thing had been with me long before Randonautica, before the clearing, before everything. The app had only woken it up, unleashed it from the depths of my mind. And now it was stronger than ever. The shadow's true nature, I couldn't take it anymore. Desperate for answers, I sought out help from an old occult shop in town, run by a woman who claimed to know things about spirits and curses. When I described the shadow to her, her face paled. "It's not just a shadow," she said. "It's a part of you, a reflection of your darkest fears, your anxieties, your regrets. The more you acknowledge it, the stronger it becomes." I asked her how to stop it, how to get rid of it. "You can't," she replied grimly. "You can only learn to live with it, or let it consume you." Her words echoed in my mind as I left the shop. Live with it. How could I live with this thing following me, haunting me, draining my life away? As I walked home, the shadow appeared again, its form clearer than ever. This time, it didn't stay at the edge of my vision. It stood right in front of me, blocking my path, its darkness enveloping everything around me. It whispered something I couldn't quite understand, but the intent was clear. I couldn't escape it. The cliffhanger that was a week ago. Now, as I sit here writing this, I can feel the shadow standing behind me. It's closer than ever. I know, deep down, that my time is running out. Soon, it will consume me entirely, and I'll be nothing but a memory. Just another victim of the shadow. Before that happens, I need to warn you. If you ever feel a presence following you, don't ignore it. Don't brush it off. It won't stop until it has you too. If you want to know what happens next, I have another story that's even more chilling than this one. Click the link and find out what happened to another person who couldn't escape the darkness. It might just save your life. Watch more terrifying true horror stories here.